raise your hand if you have a question.
All right. Certainly, guys are excited about the opportunity to come and play their first home game in Tiger Stadium, and this one is certainly a little different in that it's my first home game too, so I'm super excited about that as well. And certainly, we want to bounce back for a very heartbreaking and disappointing loss. But again, I'll get into that a little bit. But the game itself against Southern, first LSU game versus a SWAC school, and HBCU opponent. The significance of that is great. Playing an HBCU school, I think, is a great thing for this university and certainly for Baton Rouge, historic in nature. To have two schools from the same city uniting and celebrating this community, the accomplishments, the programs. Certainly, the Human Jukebox is on display at halftime. I mean, one of the most iconic bands in all of college football. We get a chance to, obviously see them and excited about that. But again, I think it's just exciting to bring in Southern and Coach Dooley, obviously in his first year. They played last week against an overmatched opponent in Florida Memorial, and they did what they should have. They dominated their opponent and certainly looked good in doing it. McCray, the quarterback, is very elusive. They've got some talented wide receivers defensively. They took the ball away. And again, dominated their opponent in the way they should in that kind of ball game. So really excited about playing this game, this home game. Our guys are excited, obviously, to get an opportunity to bounce back after a disappointing loss. And it's a short week. Yeah, yesterday was a busy day for us. Coming off a difficult loss, you can imagine there's a lot of emotion, but we had to get right back to work. We were in film study as well as scouting report, weight training, medical. All of those things had to be accomplished, all at once. So we got all that accomplished, and now we're excited about the weekend. So with that, we'll open it up to this late arriving media crowd that must have enjoyed the weekend. That's usually $10 that we put in the kitty. We'll have a big bash at the end of the year at my place. I don't think it has anything to do with winning. I think it has to do with being on time. All right, here we go.
Brian, right here in the middle. After looking at the tape, what's the easiest, quickest thing that you can correct when given a number of issues, whether it be protection, whether it be defensive alignment, assignment, those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think most of them are easily gleaned just by watching the game. We didn't get off the field on third down, so a lot of that is just eye discipline, tackling, things that I talked about after the game. Better communication from a large degree. I think from an offensive standpoint, earlier recognition in what we had and defining that. So, look, this isn't coach speak. We have to do a better job coaching our players, and they have to do a better job of execution. So what is execution? Execution is really playing with great confidence and trusting your teaching. And sometimes in the moment, you lose that trust and you go back to some things that you had done before, and that sometimes is not the best way to do it. So to get better execution, we've got to coach our guys better, and then they have to trust that and play with a great deal of confidence. If we do that, we're going to clean up a lot of those things, and we will.
Hey, Coach, did you and your staff take a look at last year's defensive numbers in terms of the interceptions and the fumble recoveries and say, hey, we got to improve this? And you got the turnover the other night, the huge turnover, but do you think the interceptions, the sack fumbles, those kind of things are coming for this defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's week one. Certainly we want to be able to take the football away. We want to be able to tackle better. There's so many things that I could stand here in front of you that in week one we want to do better. I mean, I could touch upon every single aspect of the game, but I think we have to be careful not to say that this defines anything about this football team other than what they displayed, and they displayed grit and they displayed character. They love playing for LSU. And they're going to battle their tails off. Was it pretty football all the time? No, it was not. But they're accountable. Our coaches are accountable. I'm accountable for that. And we'll go to work this week in making sure that we coach them better and that they work on execution. But they're gritty. They're going to play hard for LSU because they love LSU.
Brian, can you confirm Mason's injury and then how that affects your rotation on the D-line?
Yes, I can confirm. Our doctors confirmed an ACL tear yesterday after an MRI, which, obviously we're crushed for him because he was celebrating for a teammate on the play and trying to show his support for a teammate. And so anytime you suffer an injury under those circumstances, it's extremely disappointing. He's a great player. You're going to miss great players, but it's next man in now for us from that standpoint. So you got to count on other guys to step up, and they did in the game. I think our defensive line rallied, played as hard as they could. You certainly wouldn't, after film study, single that out as a reason for not having success. So we'll call on some other players to step up in that role, and we'll have to be, in some instances, creative, and putting guys in position where we can succeed defensively.
Brian, Wilson Alexander over here. You mentioned earlier recognition on offense. Is that kind of maybe using that tempo earlier in the game that ended up having that success later, or is there something else offensively that you recognized as y'all going over the game that you need to maybe change or do differently?
Yeah, they were in a lot of pressure fronts. They went to a lot of bear. They covered us up front, so they had individual singular matchups on each one of our 5 guys up front, which put them in a lot of man coverage. We needed to be in some different protections. It took us a while to recognize some of those things. So we got to do a better job coaching that because, Jaden's very sharp. He understands the offense. So that's something that we'll have to do a better job coaching and making sure that he recognizes that, is able to get us in the right protection, get the ball out quicker, which he did when he saw that later in the game, which prompted them on the long drive to drop 8 and be in a 3-man rush. And when he had time in a 3-man rush and nothing was open, it creates opportunities for him to run. So he can be very difficult to defend once he does a really good job, and we continue to coach him along in those recognitions of those particular fronts.
Yeah, Brian, right here in the front. Have you, had to talk to Kayshawn the past day or two about getting, he seemed a little depressed, or the body language wasn't great? Have you had to, kind of pick him up?
Yeah, I think there were a number of those guys that were disappointed in their play, and they're so hard on themselves. They want to succeed at such a high level. So yeah, I had a conversation with Kayshawn, and his standard is so high, and obviously it was a difficult day for him. It wasn't his best, but he's going to have great games, and it's going to be in the totality of his work that he's going to be evaluated. He hadn't played in a while. He'd been out with an injury. Maybe there was a little rust there. He's the least guy that I'm concerned about on our offense. But he's not, he carries that with him every single day. So yes, he's learning how to deal with that. And he's a young man who hasn't been in this situation before, and he needs some guidance. And so we spent some time, and, we worked some things out that will help him handle the scrutiny. And quite frankly, the scrutiny was strong. And, his reaction was probably similar to what my reaction would be as a 60-year-old. I mean, he has handled it in a manner that he'll learn from and continue to grow from.
Hey, Coach. Henry Huber with the LSU Rev. With Mason Smith injured for the remaining of the season, Mekhi Wingo is expected to take on a large role at filling his shoes. While those are large shoes to fill, how effectively do you believe he'll do that? And what's his attitude been like since the game?
Oh, Mekhi has been amazing. He's been a great leader. He won this week's SWAT team points again. He's a terrific leader. He played very well in the game. He's active. Mason Smith is, it's hard to compare anybody to Mason Smith, his size, his athleticism. But Mekhi Wingo is going to be Mekhi Wingo. And what he does is extremely effective as a football player. And he gets now, obviously, a bigger share of that work. And it'll be incumbent upon some others to step up as well.
Brody Miller with The Athletic. I know you talked Saturday about how, Florida State's edge rushers deserve a lot of credit, but when you look back at it, where maybe it was personnel issues, was it more protection stuff? I guess what stood out that maybe you guys can fix?
Well, it's kind of what I talked about. They had singular matchups, and so, their edge guys were really good. One of them went against a true freshman. Will held his own. I mean, he won some and lost one. That puts, obviously, Cam Wire on a one-on-one situation. There were some tough days there for him, but he battled. But, you got to look at your personnel going against who we played against. And, are there better ways that we could have helped our offensive line? Should we have sprinted more? Should we have, gapped it more? We started to chip late in the game and give some help on one side or the other. So, those are things that you look at after you see your personnel against a team like Florida State and start to make some deeper evaluations as to how you're going to move forward when you start to play, SEC competition.
Coach, I know the NCAA has cracked down on the number of full padded contact practices over spring and fall practices since 2014. Do you think that plays a role in some of maybe the messy tackling we've seen this weekend, or mistakes like the targeting call, like Ali Gay, maybe the lack of practice?
I'm not giving Ali Gay a pass on that targeting. That's, if you look that up in the dictionary, that's what targeting is. That was a young man who's regretful of the decision and how that went about. He'll sit the first half. He's got to be better. He knows that. But no, I don't think targeting has anything. Tackling is an art, right? I mean, it's something that you have to develop that skill. We tackled as much as we could. Let's give Florida State's quarterback a lot of the credit, too. He's extremely elusive. We had 16 missed tackles on him, and that's too many. We had him wrapped up for tackles for loss on a number of occasions, which would have got us off the field. But we've got to be better. There's no question.
Hey, Coach Kelly, right in the middle. Covering Coach Sean Payton for years, one of his go-to phrases was every week's crisis or carnival in his organization. After a loss, only the first of the season, how do you handle the kids to get them to focus on what's in front of them and not pay attention to everything that's outside of the program, listening to what people are saying about the loss?
Yeah, look, it's a high-profile program. They come to LSU with understanding that, with success, comes a responsibility, and they have to be able to balance that. So I'm not up here to make excuses for our guys, but there is a line too, right? You don't want it to get so crazy that we're, attacking, people. We can be critical, and we're critical. We should be critical of our coaching, and we should be critical of our play. Critical analysis is going to get us better. But I think the theme, I think what was most important within our room and our team meeting was there are things that we did well, and I've kind of mentioned them already. Well, we showed resolve. But what we have to do better is consistent execution. And what we learned is that we got to play 4 quarters of football, and that means we got to start fast. We did not start fast. The second quarter and third quarter was hit and miss, and we finished strong. So we've got to play 4 quarters of LSU football, and we've got to execute better. And that was really the emphasis in that meeting, and to stay focused on what's important now.
Coach down here, were you alarmed by the problems on special teams, and what changes do you have to make, you think, if any, to remedy what you saw?
Well, we made in-game changes on PAT field goal, and we thought we had them remedied. Didn't prove to be that way. And the punt, we had the first muff punt, and it was my decision to stick with Malik. And we always are benefited by hindsight, right? But I felt like he's an elite athlete. He's confident. And I wanted to show that confidence in him. And that's my call in that situation. So, one of them is on him. The other was Coach Kelly sticking with him, I guess you could say. As it relates to the field goal extra point situation, we made a change. We flipped personnel over from that left side and moved somebody over there that we felt would shore that side up. We kicked the extra point with success and had the look we wanted. And then on the final PAT, we didn't execute the way we needed to.
Hey, Coach Dylan Sanders, Go247. How do you feel about Jaden's debut as the starting quarterback for LSU?
Yeah, I think I've talked a little bit about it. I think early recognition needs to be better. But I thought he competed well. I thought later in the game he definitely settled into some, really good rhythm. I think when we did go some tempo, that really, benefited him. I thought late his pocket presence was excellent. He knew when to run. He knew when to stay in the pocket and find, the open receiver. So, I think first game, kind of a mixed bag early on, settled into it nicely as the game went on. That's not good enough against good teams. You got to be ready to go right out. And I think this will be, probably a really good game, this past game, for him to really learn from and up his game.
Hey, Coach, sticking with the quarterbacks, at any point in the game, did you consider going to Garrett, and might you expect to play both this weekend?
Yeah, it was never a conversation. There was never a time during the game where Mike Denbrock, that is, or Joe Sloan had a conversation about, hey, let's make a change here. Let's see if that's the best option for us. That was never a conversation. And right now it's Jaden's our number 1 quarterback.
Coach, Peter Broderick with the Reveille. Obviously, during the offseason, the secondary is one of the biggest, points being talked about. What was your thoughts on how they played on Sunday?
Yeah, I thought the corners played solid. We would have liked a little bit more physicality in the tackling, but by and large, we felt like they held up pretty good. We had a lot of man coverage call situations. I thought they were on body. Did a pretty good job. We lost our eyes, obviously, on the reverse touchdown pass. That's unacceptable. We've got to be more disciplined in that situation. But by and large, pretty good. We've got to communicate better at the safety position. Our guys know that. We've got to coach it better, too. I mean, we've got to be there consistently talking about how we can have a better, consistent operation with our safeties and knowing, what they're doing and how to do it.
Coach here on the left, what are some keys to getting the run game going moving forward beyond Jaden's legs?
Run game is such a difficult topic to kind of say, when is the run game effective? To me, the run game is effective as it relates to success ratio in short yardage, success ratio in terms of yards per carry. You know, you want to be over 4 yards per carry, obviously, so you're keeping the chains in your favor. You want to be able to get those short yardage conversions, so anything 3rd and 1 to 3, we were pretty good. We were in goal line, we punched it in. Yeah, I mean, obviously the run game has to continue to grow, but in a first game situation, you're talking about the timing and the reads of running backs with the offensive linemen and tight end blocking and receivers. There's so many pieces, so it's hard to really give you, where are you with the running game. We've got to get all those pieces working together, and then I'll be able to give you a better assessment of where we are and where we're going.
Right up the middle. I got 2 if I can. Running backs and tight ends look like they struggled in protection. How much better can you be there, or is it just a course of playing games? And then secondly, how do you like to approach recruiting on game day? Do you stack up as many visits as you can with your home games, or do you really focus on the games?
Yeah. So the first question is running back and tight ends. I think that's an area of need to improve in. Mason Taylor's playing a lot for us. He's a young player. His matchups were not favorable in most instances. He battled the best he could. We know where our limitations are. We're going to have to be better there, and we're going to have to be better at the running back position. And we got to be creative. It is what it is. As it relates to recruiting, we want to be very careful in this first year that we are not missing in action at practice as we are developing this football team. I do like to get out, but in year one, we want to make sure that there's continuity and that our players are going to need us as we recruit. So we're gonna be very deliberate and balanced in terms of how we do that.
Hey, Coach, speaking of Southern, when you were growing up or watching football, do you have any memories of HBCUs and all the talent they would send to the NFL, and do you feel like they're kind of maybe getting back to that a little bit in recent years?
Yeah, for me, it's Eddie Robinson, and Grambling, and those games being played on NBC, and remembering them. One of the biggest honors that I had was, getting an opportunity to speak at the Eddie Robinson Museum when it was opened up. It was a great honor, and just being immersed in the history of HBCU. So for me, it's as a head football coach and somebody that's been in the business as long as I have, I'm really excited about this game because it brings in the historical perspective and how important it is.
Brian, over here. Okay. When it comes to the safety situation, Joe Fouché, what can you say about his situation and the suspension that he's?
Yeah, he'll be back this year. I know it. He'll be back.
Hey, Coach, in regards to the game on Saturday, it's the first time 2 Baton Rouge universities have faced up against each other in history. How important do you think this game is for the players, and how important do you think this game is for the city of Baton Rouge itself?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think it's exciting for the city to have 2 teams playing together, celebrates the accomplishments of both universities. The city itself, a flagship university like LSU, and certainly a great institution, and a traditional HBCU university like Southern. Bringing them both together, I think, is a incredible thing for the city. This doesn't happen. I mean, how many teams get together from the same city? Maybe UCLA and USC. I can't think of many more that are in the same city that play each other. So it's a big deal. It's pretty cool. I'm excited, and I know our players are too.
Hey, Coach. Hey, Coach. How would you sort of evaluate the performance of your linebacker? It seems like you guys were kind of vulnerable in the middle of the field during the game.
Yeah. Look, I mean, when you don't get off the field on 3rd down, it's not just the safeties, it's not just the corners, it's not just your pass rush. Everybody's responsible for that. We've got to play better at that position. In particular, we've got to tackle better. We've got to blitz better. We've got to be on body and coverage better. So, is there room for major improvement there? Yes, there is. There's room for improvement in my coaching and our playing, and we've got to get better there as well.
Coach, a couple of times you gave up a sack when you were 5 blocking 3 and 6 blocking 4. Is there anything you can do there, you think, as far as communication, maybe to help your especially your tackles, anything you can do there?
Yeah, so a lot of that's O-line awareness and making sure that we're helping where help is needed. And when you get 5 guys that are battling and trying to do it the best they can, they have to know where their help's coming from. And that's consistency. That's where you get a group of guys that have played together for a while, that they know where to help. And we call that O-line awareness. And certainly we lack a little bit of that right now. But we'll get there. We'll build that as the season goes on. Good? All right. Thank you.